Good evening.
Hold on.
Please hold.
Okay.
Okay, good evening. Reconvening the January, what day is this? 4th? Board of Supervisors meeting. And the first action we need to take is to certify the closed meeting.
Yes, thank you. Do each of you certify that to the best of your knowledge only public business matters lawfully exempted from the open meeting requirements of the Virginia Freedom of Information Act and only such public business matters as were identified in the motion by which the closed meeting was convened were heard, discussed, or considered by the Board of Supervisors in closed meeting? If you could just call the roll for me.
Oh, sorry. Mr. Frazier?
I do.
Ms. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Carney?
Yes.
Mr. Whitson?
Yes.
And I also.
Thank you.
All right. We're moving into the public hearing portion of the evening, and this is public hearing specific to the tax relief for the elderly and disabled. This isn't public comment, public hearing period of time. And I believe Mr. Curry and Ms. Graham are going to speak to this. Or Ms. Bonnie.
Who do you want? Do you want me to kick it off? Yes. So the Board of Supervisors discussed during the FY23 budget development process the current ordinance for tax relief for the elderly and disabled, and considered whether the current ordinance was appropriate for our community. At that time, they asked staff to look into potential changes, and Ms. Graham came forward with some recommendations also around the time of budget development. Since that time, county staff and Ms. Graham have developed a proposed draft. That draft was shared with the Board of Supervisors at the last meeting, and the board authorized the ordinance to be put before the community for a public hearing. Notices were placed in the newspaper as required by Code of Virginia, Section 15.2.14.27, which must be done anytime the board adopts an ordinance. Ms. Graham, do you have any specifics you would like to speak to the ordinance, or perhaps only if the board has questions? We can move forward however the board would like, and then open the public hearing to public input.
Yep, I think unless you have new information, the board did get to talk to you the last time. Is there anything new that you all would like to address?
Would you like to read it in its entirety?
I would say in general, it broadens the opportunity for tax relief for the elderly and disabled, and provides a more gradual transition from those who receive relief to the cutoff to receiving no relief. And so we think it's a much better program for the community, and it might be more difficult for Mary to apply, but it'd be better for the community.
Madam Chair, I just had one question for the Revenue Commissioner, Ms. Graham, if I may.
Yes, sir.
Mary, just a rough estimate in a given year, how much time do you spend sort of doing due diligence when people are seeking this form of tax relief? Because I understand from your own statements that you're pretty thorough in reviewing a person's finances to make sure that their net worth doesn't exceed the minimum or the maximum threshold. I was just curious overall how much time your office spends on the work needed to administer this.
That's difficult to say. I haven't tracked my time specifically to this task, mainly because as I speak with the people who are already enrolled in the program, I give them each some time. I don't want to hurry them. The initial application from a brand new person is when I'm most thorough about, all their different assets, all their different income, and I get it all laid out there. But subsequent years, I pretty much know what their situation is, but I still need to find out the numbers for that particular year. So, and we have about, between 70 and 100 people. I'm not sure exactly.
And possibly a different number in the future after the adoption of this ordinance.
Exactly. I have no idea what this will do, but it's, to me, a very worthwhile program, and I will give it the time that it needs.
Yeah, it's just interesting, it's interesting for me to kind of think about the mix of activities in your office, for example, and in the treasurer's office, and is it like, would you say 10% of what your office does in terms of overall time, 30%, far less than 10%?
Probably less than 10, but
Okay.
in January, February, it's a higher percentage because that's when
Sure.
we're doing it.
Yeah, I get that. Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
Anybody else?
I think we're good.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor.
We're going to move into public.
Yes, please open the public hearing.
All right. At this point, I'd like to open the floor for the public hearing with regards to ordinance amendment tax relief for the elderly and disabled. It's the only topic on this public hearing. Anyone wishing to speak? Do we have Zoom hands available as well?
Yes.
Okay. We'll start in the courtroom. Anyone wishing to speak to the public hearing, please come up, be recognized, and give us your name and the district you're in. Yes, sir.
Tommy Atkins, Jackson District. Well, I think this is a good start in the right direction here, but I also think you need to look at doing more. Because the seniors 65 and over in this county, this threshold does not allow them a whole lot of money in today's time. The cost of everything, is every one of you will know, is way up. Cost of gasoline, food, everything is constantly going up. And again, I commend you if you approve this program. You know, it is a step in the right direction. But these seniors, 65 and over and disabled, they do need more help. That's all I ask. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tom.
Thank you, Tom.
Yes, ma'am.
Carolyn Brown Butler, Piedmont. I would just like to say that in most jurisdictions, when they send out the tax bill, there's a leaflet in there that explains this to people because many elderly people do not know about this. They don't have internet. And when I was in Fairfax, I helped a lot of people that were in need to get this program. It's really, it's throughout the state, and I know the state puts a cap on how much. And so I think we could continue to increase this because there are many people that we don't know about that need this. So if you could notify them with the tax bill, that would be great. Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Carolyn.
Thank you.
Not seeing any hands in the courtroom. Is there any one on Zoom that wishes to speak at this point with the public hearing?
Just raise your Zoom hand if you can.
It's going to be added to the dictionary, the Zoom hand.
I'm seeing no Zoom hands.
Okay, not seeing any Zoom hands. We'll close the public hearing and open it up to the board for discussion.
Well, I would just like to thank Ms. Graham and Ms. Jewell for your working on this and bringing it to attention. And I really appreciated your comments. And I do have just a quick question: is that what if for instance we were to want to change that cap? Would we have to change the ordinance, or is that something that we can surgically go back in and she comes back to us after 2 years and says, "Hey guys, I really think that there's a need that's."
Well, the ordinance is, the amended ordinance is set up to be able to allow changes into the future based on some objective metrics, like the poverty level and different
Yeah.
things like that. So to the extent that those numbers change,
Right.
Mary would automatically be empowered to
Yep.
adjust the program. If you wanted to move away from those metrics or change it from 2 times the poverty level to 2.5 times the poverty level or something like that, that'd be an ordinance change.
Got
Which is, you know, a 2-month process. If you really wanted to turn it around quickly, you could do it.
Any other discussion?
I would just echo the sentiments, thanking staff for seeing this through. I know you all worked very hard to make sure that this was an expansion of the program and that people wouldn't be left out that had previously been included in the program, and to figure out a way to expand it, but also allow for future considerations too, and that's great. And I know that there are people in my district that have worked with you for these kinds of tax credits, and it makes a big difference in their lives. So thank you very, very much for all you do. I would be remiss if I didn't say thank you to Tommy and Carolyn, because I think they brought this up during our last budget cycle. And so please come out to meetings and speak up when you see something that needs to be done. It really helps us do our job better too.
If the board's inclined to move forward the ordinance as presented, you could do so with a motion to adopt the ordinance as presented.
Well, then I will move to, sorry? I'll move to adopt the provided ordinance amendments to Rappahannock County Code, Chapter 151, Article 12, tax relief for the elderly and disabled as presented or amended during the meeting.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, roll call.
Yes, please.
Mr. Frazier?
Aye.
Ms. Smith?
Aye.
Mr. Carney?
Aye.
Mr. Whitson?
Aye.
And I also.
Thank you.
All right, moving into public hearing number 2, ordinance amendment returning late filing fee for personal property. Do you have any?
Yeah, so just similar to the last public hearing, this matter was an item brought forward to the board from the Commissioner of Revenue prior to your last meeting. At your last meeting, staff shared a draft of a potential ordinance that would change the process through which residents, declare the personal property they own for the purposes of personal property taxation, car tax for most people. Right now, a blue form is required to be submitted in the spring, and if one doesn't submit that blue form in a timely manner, they're subject to a late fee and interest. There's enough information available to us through Department of Motor Vehicles that we can largely rely on data available through those channels to identify the vehicles that are garaged here on January 1. Many counties do it that way. And then by exclusion, there are certain circumstances where people would have to file a form if that information is not available. So this is a major change in how the vehicles that are garaged in the county on January 1 is to be determined, and really leverages the information available for DMV and other fish and game and others for boats and whatnot. There is a financial downside to the county, but it's a benefit to the citizens in that those late fees would no longer be collected. Predictably, in the past, it's been about 40 grand a year, so the board would have to make up that revenue through some other resource other than people who can't manage to submit a blue form in the right door on the right day, which seems a little punitive. So the ordinance is before you that does all that. It takes quite a few changes to do what I just said generally, and they're included in the draft ordinance that's been available for inspection in my office for the last month, and it's been advertised in the paper as required by Code of Virginia, Section 15.2.14.27. And with that, if you have questions, Ms. Graham should be able to answer them, and then you will need to hear from the public before you consider adoption.
Okay. Going to move ahead with the opening the public hearing for this returning late filing fee for personal property. If there's anyone in the courtroom that would like to speak to this, if you please be recognized and come up. Not seeing any hands in the courtroom. Do we have any on the Zoom world?
No hands at the moment on Zoom.
Still none? All right, seeing none on Zoom, I'll close the public hearing and again open this up to the board. If we have any questions for Mary, I'm sure she'll come up.
Well, listen, I just think this is modernization. I think this is not relying on little slips of paper and saving folks money through postage, which admittedly is not as much as we'd collected in late fees, but we're taking off a whole layer of bureaucracy and circulating those blue sheets and then tallying them and keeping track of them in systems that are already accounted for. So I think we should do this, and I'll put that's my motion.
I'll second.
That's a motion to adopt the ordinance as presented in the packet?
Yes, sir.
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
Okay, thanks again to Mrs. Graham.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. I appreciate that you're looking out for all the citizens and trying to find ways to simplify things where possible. And this looks to me like a gotcha, blue form. Did we get you, did we not? So now we've taken that out, and I really appreciate that.
I think the only thing we might need to do is the education component, like we discussed with the last agenda item, because people are used to getting these blue forms, and they just need to know, you're not going to get those anymore. But that is not a problem, and there are other ways to handle the situation.
I will brainstorm that one.
I know the newspapers are normally very willing to help us.
They just have to do it the right time of year.
Great. Mr. Whitson, anything before we vote?
No, I agree with everything said, and I think it's great to take that very time-consuming work, setting aside and just making life better for our citizens. So thank you to Mary.
All right, we have a motion, a second. All those in favor say aye.
Roll call, please.
Oh, sorry. Mr. Frazier,
Aye.
Ms. Smith,
Aye.
Mr. Carney,
Aye.
Mr. Whitson,
Aye.
and I also.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mary.
Thank you very much.
Thank you all very much. I appreciate
Thank you.
it.
Thank you.
Happy New Year. All right, next we have public comment for this evening. I will let everyone here know that for the, if you're here for the company 4 agenda item, the board is still listening. We're still in listening mode, so don't necessarily expect any type of vote tonight. But so just in case that's why you're here. I wanted to set expectations up front. So when we open public comment, which I'm about to do, if you will be recognized and come up and speak to really anything this evening, we are listening to what you have to say.
We do have a hand from Zoom for public comment.
Okay?
We'll get to it short. There you go.
There you go. If you'll give us your name and district.
My name is Karen Williams. I'm the president of the Flint Hill Fire Department. I am in the Wakefield District. I have a letter here. I'm not very good at speaking, so I wrote a letter. We are having problems at our fire department. Our EMS license has been suspended, which most everybody knows. But I did write a letter, and this is what I wrote. It said, if you placed 1404 in the station at Flint Hill under the county supervision, Flint Hill having nothing to do with the EMS side other than helping when we're available. Maybe consider taking the 40% that Chester Gap is receiving and apply to hire drivers for Medic 1404, then you would be covering the areas with a medic unit. That unit could cover Chester Gap, Flint Hill, and other areas because the station is located within 12 miles to Chester Gap and 5 miles to 211. The station is in good location to respond to these places. We are willing to share our space with the paid staff and learn from them, yet we are not managing anything for EMS. This would be a win-win for the county and the citizens. They would have an ambulance again, and the money for cost recovery would help the county offset the cost because it would be coming back into the county's revenue. EMTs are paid at a rate of $16 per hour. Medics are paid at a rate of $19 per hour. So $35 per hour times 24 hours times 365 equals $306,600 per year. Divided by 40% equals $122,640. That's an incredible amount of money, and I'm sure you could hire drivers for that amount of money. The cost recovery money would be then coming back to the Rappahannock County and not one company. Chester Gap is running 60+% of their calls in Warren County, which Warren is paying for. Plus, they are getting funding from both counties for operating expenses that should cover the 40% that you could take. Our request is that we be allowed to operate our fire side of the department, and the county can come into our station and manage the EMS side of things. Our volunteers would still be available when possible to help the driving duties of 1404. We are not the only county company that is struggling. The accident on 211 on Friday, there was not a driver available for Medic 1, so that patient had to wait for someone to respond from their home in Spearville to the scene to drive. Luckily, that patient was not critically hurt. Have we made mistakes? Yes, and we are trying to correct everything. Yes, and I don't believe cutting our funding on the fire side is the right thing to do. The month of December, we ran 90% of the calls we were dispatched on. We're trying, and I can assure you, we are not trying to take anything away from Chester Gap, and we are thankful that they are there and have done a good job with everything. But we feel that the citizens of Flint Hill and that end of the county deserve better coverage than 40%. That being said, with Chester Gap running 60% of their calls in Warren County, some months more, and they are always available to their community of Chester Gap and Huntley. We are asking that you please consider our request to continue our funding for the fire side of the department. And I think that's all I got. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Paige Gliddy from Jackson District. As most of you know, I've been on the fire levy board since 2015, and I was on the committee that did the fire services agreement. So I thought it would be good if I provided you some history. Here's enough copies for all of you. On regarding this issue with Company 4, all right? First of all, in the executed version 9B, dated 19 July, there's virtually nothing in there to deal with a non-performing company. Though it doesn't specifically say you can withhold funding, there's nothing that says that you can't withhold funding, all right? But let me go back to the revision history, all right? Because when I first got on that committee, Companies 4 performance was already, 2015, was already questionable, all right? And so I started off with the very first draft of a paragraph that you will see on the back of the page that started off, and that one went through here. You probably want to see that one went through versions 1 and 2. It was general. Interesting enough, when we got to version 3, the companies/associations stepped forward and wrote this long process about what to do about non-performing companies, all right? That version survived, that paragraph, without minor changes, survived all the way through the county attorney's review, which was primarily revision 7. What happened after that? I don't know where that paragraph went to, because after revision 7, I no longer had configuration control of the document. So I don't know why this was taken out. I'm pretty sure that the companies/association had control of the document at that point, all right? But my point is this. Whether this is exactly what to do or not, this is a very good starting point for how to address a non-performing company that at some point in the history, the companies had talked about and were pretty much on board with the process. It's not a short process, but it could be done, all right? And so, and it seems very fair. But note at the end, when all else fails, it does say you can pull their funding, all right? So anyway.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Paige. Yes, sir.
Good evening. My name is Tom Lyon in Wakefield District, and full-time resident in Huntley, and about 5 miles from Station 4. And you know, I was at some of the one of the public safety hearings, and the one thing that is most on my mind and my wife's mind is, in our living up here in our 70s, we're at risk of not having in need if we weren't able to have prompt response. So we feel a certain amount of urgency in this issue before the board, and just wanted to stress that, living in this area is wonderful, but if something should happen in the older age, it is very important. And it's important to us that the closest station to us, which is most likely to reach us most quickly, be up to speed and be able to provide qualified help.
Could you repeat your last name, please?
Lyon, Lyon. Thanks.
Yes, sir.
Hi, my name is Whit Robinson. As several of you know, I don't live in Rappahannock, however, I've got a long-standing relationship with Rappahannock. I'm only here because of an issue with this particular company and dealing with one of my best friends. I'm not going to be as animated as I was at the Public Safety Committee meeting. I heard some things that night that really set me off. But the one thing that I keep mulling over in my head is I hear a lot of we're trying, and I believe it's been about 7 years. I haven't heard anything definitive of what they're trying and how it's going to be accomplished. And so if you don't have that, and you don't have a matrix of what you're doing, what you need to get back into the program for, then why do you continue to try? I mean, it's, again, beating your head against a wall, the definition of insanity. You keep doing the same thing again and again and again, and if it's not working, then you got to try something different. And just as a previous gentleman said, there's a population out here that needs EMS. I was an EMT for a long time up in Maine when I was in school, and we dealt with a lot of elderly people. And if you don't have that ability to put it out there, you're going to lose people, and people that could be saved. And so, yes, you want to treat volunteers in a fire station well, and you want to help and support them. I mean, God bless them. It's, I don't run into burning buildings. I get that aspect of it. But at the same time, if you don't have a program set in place, then nobody's running into burning buildings. Nobody's saving the elderly. So I ask that you all there's a whole host of ideas I have in my head that I could certainly help with. People may not like it, but I think it would work. But I'm not going to go into that tonight. I'd like to be able to see the county actually take control of something that doesn't work. I mean, it doesn't work. 7 years they've been trying. It's not working. People are going to die. Quite frankly, my belief is somebody already has. And so what does it cost for a life? Is an ego a cost for life? Or do you guys want to actually accomplish something? So I just ask that you accomplish something. There are numerous ways to fix this. I certainly have my ideas. Perhaps the county attorney does. And I'd certainly like to look at that if he does. But please just fix it. Fix it. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am. Oh, dear.
A hateful microphone. Oops, thank you.
He forgot to say that he played basketball in school.
Pardon me? Anyway, okay. Sheila Gressinger, Hampton District. I wasn't really going to say anything, and then I heard this thing coming up. And actually, the last gentleman had some fairly good points. If there are concerns with a specific organization, and what he was saying is that he's heard people saying for 7 years, we're trying. If you're just trying, has anybody helped and actually put forth goals? In other words, what are you trying to accomplish, and put the steps there so you have some way of knowing how to go forward, and then how to have some ways of accomplishing things. I went to a seminar one time, and they said to have these sticky notes with, this, that, and the other thing, but they also said, when you've done something, have the opportunity to be able to check that off and say, I did it, to give some kind of success and going forward. So if there's a problem with a specific organization, I say, how can we actually help to actually put something in place that's organized to get them on the right track if that's not what's happening. The other thing is, it's like circling the drain. We have older people here. We're trying to attract younger people. We're trying to be able to get this county, I don't want to say grow because people go nuts, but I want to say replacing that which we have lost. And there's a way to do it. And I'm sure we can do it. And I would prefer to see people going forward in a positive way. The other thing, we have the public comment here before people really had a chance to find out what's going on. If there were a chance for a public comment section B after some of these topics have been discussed, you might be able to get a better conversation going about concerns and everything. Because I think some people are just sort of working blind. The other little thing I want to talk about quickly is that I've also heard sometimes people talking about totally different subject. People leaving wineries and going in the wrong direction. So I did a study, and coming out of Gray Ghost, when you go out, of course it's a divided highway, and you have to go to the right to be able to go make a U-turn to go to the other direction. If you were to turn left at Gray Ghost, there's a sign that says do not enter. At Naramata Winery, there's nothing like that. So if people are coming out of that specific winery and they take a left, there's nothing to indicate to them that they're going the wrong way. And a lot of people coming to our wineries are visitors. They have not a clue what these roads are like, especially after the dark. So that may be something that VDOT can address, but I did do my homework on that. So maybe that's something that will help people driving in the wrong direction. Thanks.
Thanks, Sheila.
Thanks, Sheila.
Anyone else in the courtroom? Yes, ma'am.
I'm Fran Krebser from Wakefield. Sorry.
He gets paid extra for that.
I'm
Double.
sorry.
He gets paid extra for that.
Good job. Yes. I've been supporting Flint Hill ever since I've been here, and my husband did before me. Deborah Milosevic spoke the last meeting about the trail rides that we had, and we had some really great trail rides. Raised a lot of money for the fire company. I'm ashamed to say that I don't really know any of the people involved in the fire company. I looked at the website today, and I couldn't tell you if they have a board of directors. I saw a president, a vice president, some other people, but there weren't pictures of them, so that when I see them on the street in Settles, anywhere, and talk to them about what's going on. And frankly, I didn't know that this had been going on for 7 years, because I've been dealing with my parents and another family member's death over all that time. So I hate to say that I've been so out of touch in my own district, and I promise you that will change. But I would like to see Flint Hill survive. It is very important for us to have a thriving fire company in our district. However, a thriving fire company is not one that we've had for the last 7 years. And I'm very disturbed to see some of the things that I read in the letter that they attached to their response that even came about and needed attention. I would certainly hope that they as a group would be willing to come together with whatever the county and the association, the rescue association, fire and rescue association decides, no matter what it is, and work together because they agreed. We have made mistakes and everybody makes mistakes. Nobody's pure in this world. But it's gone on so long, and I think it needs to be a solid, continuous effort between the company and the county, whoever you decide to govern them and help them through this. It'll make a world of difference for them in the future and for Wakefield and for the county as a whole. Thank you.
Thanks, Fran.
Anyone else?
I'm Norma Settle. I live in the Wakefield district, and I am a member of Flint Hill. I've only been a member for about, I guess, a year and a half, 2 years at the most. I know that we've come several times saying we're trying. It seems like we're being, I'm not going to say penalized, but we're being looked at from 2014 to 2019, I believe, is where the problems have occurred. And I wasn't there at the time. It was under different management at the time. We've had a hard time keeping people, for instance, treasurers come and go. But I will say now we do have bookkeeping people from the outside working our books now. We are trying to put something in place, and that was the proposal that Karen made tonight, that we hand over the EMS side to the county completely. We have no desire to govern that anymore. We had several meetings. We had one on Saturday with Beth, and everybody was there, and we're all in agreement now that we need a running rescue squad in that building. If that means just releasing everything to the county to benefit the citizens, and that's what we need to do. We're willing to just open our building, let the county bring in whoever they want, let them run the whole EMS side of things, but we'd still like to be able to run the fire calls. Like Karen stated, we've ran, I think it was 80 or 90% of the calls this month that we were dispatched on. There again, I'd like to say the people in our company are volunteers. They have normal jobs just like everybody else, and we're not the only company suffering. And it's our company right now, but 6 months down the road it could be somebody else. It could be another company that's suffering. Just like she mentioned the accident on 211 with the deputy the other day. Company 1 didn't have anybody other than Ann. And Ann was told to respond by herself, but she needed a driver. So she had to wait for somebody in her company to be dispatched all the way from Sperryville to drive that ambulance. I mean, just luckily, the gentleman wasn't hurt that bad. And I want to apologize to the gentleman who lost his friend. If we had an ambulance there that day, would we have been able to save him? Who knows? I'm not saying yes or no. Was it a bad situation? Absolutely. And I'm sorry he lost his friend. But I don't feel that we can be penalized for that because we don't know what would have happened. Would it have helped? Maybe. I don't know. But like I said, we are trying. We don't know what else to do. You can't make people come and join. And I hate to say it, there's no incentive for young people anymore to come and join. So, I mean, we have begged for help from the county. But the safety committee kind of slammed us because they said we waited until the 12th hour. And I understand that. But it should not matter if you wait till the 12th hour or not. If the county is willing to step in and help, it should not have mattered. whether it had been 8 months ago or now. I mean, we came and we asked at the last public safety hearing, and we were slammed by that safety committee. And they kept talking about direction of the department. Well, I can assure you, these people were not in direction or not in charge of the department when all this stuff went bad. So we're a new group of people, and all we can do is offer and try to help. So, I mean, I ask that you don't cut our funding. If you do, we have to live with it. But I can't see where cutting the funding, even if it's just, if it's the EMS side, fine. Because like I said, we need trained people in there. We need somebody that's going to run out of there. But I can't see where it's going to benefit the community if you cut the funding totally. It's gonna cost the county money because the county's going to have to come in and put somebody in there. They're going to have to pay for somebody to be there to run the place. You know, like I said, are we perfect? No, but we're trying. We're trying. That's all I can say. And I know people are getting tired of hearing that, but there again, it's not the same organization as it was in 2014 to 2019. So that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Anybody else?
I'm gonna try to cover this because first off, my name's Paul, and I'm here. I live in the Wakefield district, and I've got a gravelly voice because it's so disheartening hearing this. I have lived in this county since 2015, I want to say, and I can remember walking in and reading the paper about the struggling volunteer organizations then. Okay. And quite honestly, it was a hard pill to swallow for me when I talked to my wife about even going and volunteering at the fire department, because being a member of a different department where I work at, she knows the time commitment, and it is a huge time commitment. And the thing that I repetitiously have heard from members, like I said, I've got kind of this anger feeling because it's cutthroat. I don't understand why it is that it's like, well, pull funding from here. That's all you've heard from the members. It's like funding. Why haven't we talked about the performance? You have had numerous chiefs and numerous officers of this department that have sought out no training. The training's there. I mean, it's available. As a taxpayer of this county, I know what it takes to train a person, and I know the time and the money that it takes, and it's a lot. It is a lot. And I don't ever want to speak against a volunteer organization, but look at the list of deficiencies. I mean, if you were in the county that I work in, they would have been cut a long time ago. Funding would have been cut a long time ago. They would have sent in the county lawyer, the county executive, and a whole bunch of other people to find out why it is that there's so much unaccounted for money. My wife travels the roads of Rappahannock County and goes through Flint Hill where there's boot drives, and it's like, why do they need more money? Aren't you 100% funded by the county operationally? Yeah. I don't know what they do with the money. You walk into Rural King. Ethically, the chief and the president should have put a stop to that a long time ago. They got members sitting out in front of a store in a different county soliciting for money. Again, it's all about the funding for these guys. But nobody has talked about the performance. You can rest assured. And the calls will be answered in your.
Excuse me, point of order, please. May we address our comments to the board?
Yep.
I apologize. You can rest assured that the citizens will be served, whether it's ALS 1400 or Chester Gap or Washington or Front Royal. the calls are going to get answered. Unfortunately, not as quickly as you want. I was here at the Public Safety Committee, and I heard, what is the plan? And there was no plan of any kind of continuing education or reaching out for guidance for the leadership of this organization. It was all about, well, take over our EMS, but let us have funding to run the fire department. It's again, we need as taxpayers, I would like to know how much money is it going to take before they say enough is enough. It just seems like it's all about the funding, and it is sad to speak against a fellow department. But I don't know where the structure had failed from the past until now, where the breakdown in leadership has gone. I wasn't part of the organization, but again, I came into this county several years ago, and there was problems then, and it's just continuous. And I've been, as a member of another organization, I was helping with training. And I've talked to the chief of our organization about the guidance and the support that has been given to them by other departments. There was support given then, and then they had problems again at the next inspection. It is again, repetitious problems, the same problems over and over and over again. Where does the vicious cycle end? As the taxpayer, I'd really urge the board to consider removing the funding, because it's a lot of money that's unaccounted for poor performance, as in training, education, and things like that. If the leadership's not there, then what are we paying for? That's all I have. Like I said, I apologize for the shakiness, but it's this argument. Thanks.
Thank you. No, ma'am. Sorry. Anyone else?
My name is Mike Williams, Chief at Flint Hill Volunteer Fire and Rescue. With all became chief in 2020 when all the COVID hit. With the issues from 2020 to prior, yes, it was some complaints. I got a article from our bylaws, which we followed for disciplinary actions against members, which everybody has their bylaws. When those issues came up, I did address them right then and there. All the complaints. I talked to Sean Poster numerous times about them. I'm sorry I'm not a public speaker, but with the answering the calls in, let's say, Wakefield District in Huntley, bottom of Chester Gap Mountain. Back in November,
Back in November, my husband got sick. We requested a rescue squad. Chester Gap was in Front Royal. We got Washington. I know that's not here, it's not to the point where, we're not thankful for any of the rescue squads, but we got Little Washington to get him to the hospital. We have had problems in our fire department. They have been addressed. They've been taken care of. We are moving forward. We are working on a plan to get us going. We have had several meetings with our members. We have a meeting next Wednesday. We are going to do our best to get our plans together. We will present them to you if you would like. I know that he said we had no training. We have 3 firefighters. We have one EMT. We have 2 that are in they have finished their class. They are in their they're going to get their hours. We have another one here. We have Beth. She is hopefully in the process of getting her hours. We are trying to fix it, and we are going to fix it. I mean, we keep saying we're trying, but we are going to fix this. I just think it's sad that it's come to this point, and we hope that you will support us. And please, if we can meet with you, if you could sit down with us, and, we would love to work it out. So.
Thank you.
I guess my point is, if I can finish, if my house catches on fire, I live at the bottom of Chester Gap Mountain, and granted, the one company we live in is in another first due area, which is Chester Gap. Like everybody knows, they run majority of their calls in Warren County. What if the call goes out in Warren County? My house catches on fire. The next quickest fire department is going to be Little Washington or Amosville. By the time they get there to my house will be burnt down. And at least, we do have members, we do have firefighters, and we have a lot of pump operators, drivers. And, majority of the time, I meet them on the scene. I meet my engine on the scene. They carry my gear, I meet them on the scene. I have ran plenty of calls with numerous of other companies. With the no training and everything else, I mean, it's unbelievable with him saying that. I'm willing to provide my certifications of what I have, and I had no other complaints from any other company. And that's all I got. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, anyone else public comment?
In the room.
In the room. About to go to the Zoom. Oh, yes, sir.
Tommy Atkins, Jackson District. I guess you could say I really don't have a dog in this fight, so to speak. But we've heard a lot of people speak here tonight. A lot of people have admitted they've made a lot of mistakes, and we all are human. There's not a man or woman that's walked on this earth that has not made errors. So, looks like to me, instead of us keep on having people up here, parading up here and telling over and over about their mistakes, I ask you, as the board, what are y'all willing to do to help this company get back on its feet? It's definite they need the fire department and they need a rescue squad over there. Now, what can the board do? It sounds like these people are willing to try and try again, but yes, I agree. They need leadership. Where is that leadership coming from? I look to this board to try and give this company the proper leadership to get them out of this hole that they're in. I don't think it's useless to keep on beating a dead horse, and it's useless to keep on having these people parade in and tell about their mistakes. It's all over the place. They've made mistakes. And I've made a lot of mistakes in my life. So none of us are perfect. But I'm asking you, are you willing to give them the guidance and pay for the guidance if that's what's needed and directions to get this important group, needed group, back into service. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tom.
Thanks, Tommy.
All right, I'm going to go to Zoom world. Anyone on Zoom wishing to speak, please raise your Zoom hand and Mr. Curry will unmute you.
Ms. Atkins has her hand raised. You just remuted yourself. Try again.
How's that? That better?
Yes.
Okay, this is Stephanie Atkins from the Piedmont District, and I've been listening to everyone go back and forth on the conversations, and it's really good that I'm the last person in on this conversation, because a lot of what I was hearing was we need leadership and we need guidance, and I think there are several of us in the community who are providers who can bring a lot to Flint Hill and get them up and going where they need to go. What we need is help from the Board of Supervisors with what the goals for Company 4 are, so that they can be met, but also we can give them the leadership that they need from the Virginia Association of Volunteer Rescue Squads, from the Office of EMS, from the REMS Council, from the Rappahannock Association. We have this built in. We just need to all come together. And it sounds like President Williams said they were meeting next Wednesday. And if I had some support from members of the Board of Supervisors, I would like to extend an invitation to come out to Flint Hill and sit down with Chief Williams and President Williams and get a plan and get it going and in action so that we can get Company 4 back to where it needs to be. It's a great company. It would be a tremendous loss to the community of Flint Hill to have that station closed. All the companies are having issues. Some are not as wide or broadly known as others, but we are all here tonight going, what can we do to help? So I'm extending my knowledge, my association with Virginia Volunteer Rescue Squads, with Friends Council, with the Office of EMS to say, we have people who can come in and who can get them back on track. We just need to know what track the Board of Supervisors needs Company 4 to be on to be sustainable.
Thank you.
Thanks, Stephanie.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anyone else on the Zoom world that would like to speak?
I don't see any other hands.
Okay, all right. Hearing none, I'll close the public comment period. And we just go into I've got us going into
The
Public Safety Committee.
yes, the Company 4 update is the next agenda item.
Going into Old Business, Public Safety Committee, Company 4 update.
Do you want me to mention what happened at the Public Safety Committee? Do you want to do that?
I'll let you, I mean, it's pretty much in paper.
Oh, so at the last meeting of the Board of Supervisors, the board referred to the Public Safety Committee to review and consider the capability performance of Company 4. Public Safety Committee met on December 14th and 28th, as well as 4 members met with Company 4 representatives on December 22nd to listen to them. On the 28th, after digesting the various pieces of information, the Public Safety Committee voted unanimously to recommend to the Board of Supervisors to A, pursue a forensic audit of the Company 4 financial records, as recommended by a state police investigator who is actively working on cases related to the company, as well as to cease funding to Company 4. That was a recommendation from the Public Safety Committee. There was a lot of dialogue at the Public Safety Committee meetings, both on the 14th, a lot of input from the public, as well as on the 28th. And there was open dialogue with the company on the 22nd, and certainly a big turn of position from the company between the 14th and the 28th and today. So that's the information from the Public Safety Committee. A few of us are on that committee and could provide any input other than that.
Open it up to the board for discussion.
I will say I did have a conversation with our auditing company and asked them about a forensic audit and whether they're capable of doing it. And if so, how that would be normally set up. And they said because they're very hard to predict ahead of time, it's usually an hourly sort of thing, and they really couldn't provide an estimate of total cost that it would take. It might be $10,000 or $20,000, more, less, depending on what's available and what paths they follow. And if the board was interested, they could be available to do such a thing late February. They're stacked up until then.
Mr. Curry, Woodson, I know Company One uses the same auditing firm that we do for our audit financial statement preparation.
The county hires the auditing company for the fire and rescue companies as well as the association, and they're each audited every other year, except for Company 4 has been audited every year because of their material weaknesses in each year.
That was my question. I just want to make sure that, so you're talking about a forensic audit, but I just want to make sure from baseline perspective that they have as up-to-date as possible audited financial statements. Is that the case?
The current cycle is a little delayed, and the auditors are working on it right now. The 4 most recent years available, the auditors have identified material weaknesses, which essentially mean that they can't, basically they're saying they can't confirm that the balances, et cetera, that they're reporting are accurate because there are deficiencies in place that preclude them from making that determination. And only through a more vigorous audit would you then be able to better understand and have confidence in the numbers, which might be accurate, but you can't have confidence in them without doing that extra work.
Okay, so is it safe for me to conclude then that the current audited financial statements for Company 4 are provisional at best? I mean, are they caveated to such an extent that they're unreliable?
The auditors are a professional services firm, and they insert their industry standard language relative to material weaknesses, stating that they can't guarantee that they're accurate. I don't know that you'll get them to say anything else short of performing a more vigorous forensic audit.
They use the same language for any of the other departments?
Flint Hill is the only company since I've been here who have had a material weakness, and it's 4 years running. I don't know what the most recent books year because they're not finalized.
But if what the Williams just told us is true and correct, and I don't doubt that it's not correct, I'm just saying that if it is correct, then you're saying 4 years they've been in business too, as far as running the operation, then they inherited a mess and they're trying to fix it.
Like I said, I don't have the audit for the finished year, which is 2021. Calendar year.
So if we're actually working before that, then none of that's their responsibility.
I think you could consider the membership of Company 4 over time, and certainly
membership over time, but a leadership
before
position.
Chief Williams was chief. Chief Bruce, and then Chief Mike. So there have been other people involved, different presidents that have been in and out, different members in and out.
In the same time period, the county itself with paid staff, we've made some mistakes. I'm not even gonna mention us buying the army trucks. So, I mean, as Mr. Atkins said, we all make mistakes, so we're gonna have to, and I think we're willing to do it, the board's gonna have to roll up the sleeves and work with Company 4 and try to find an answer to this situation. This pointing fingers back and forth doesn't look good. I have to agree with that.
So this recommendation, excuse me, by the state police to do a forensic audit, would we take that recommendation lightly, or would we take that recommendation as, if we do a forensic audit, and you folks have been in there for, Mike, you've been in there for 2 years, it will expose what it exposes. And, you know, I agree with Mr. Frazier that working together to get something done is what we need to do. When the state police says you should do a forensic audit, I don't take that lightly as responsible being a board of supervisor. So in what context, if you could, for my personal edification, did they recommend this audit?
So I can say the investigator is still in the middle of investigating, but was willing to put into writing in middle of December some thoughts, which are provided attached to the Public Safety Committee meeting of the 14th. Mm-hmm. And so I could read it if you want, or you can refer to it at another time. You tell me what you want to do.
I guess I suppose my question, and I could be wrong here, is that in order to move forward on the right footing, I feel like we need to do one. There have been things that have not gone correctly. And if an audit shows up and it says, hey, we can't say that this number at the back of this audit is right, it's our responsibility to say, yep, well, we got to figure out why. I'm a business owner. I do the same thing. When our accountant comes in and says, hey, where did that come from? I mean, you got to find it. To me, that's what this does. It's not so much pointing fingers, though it might. But sometimes the hard work has to be done to move forward. And that's why I was asking in what context. When the state police says, hey, you should do this, I take that sort of seriously.
But they did say they may have additional findings in March, and that may yield information as well.
Right. His concluding paragraph is that forward any further complaints or concerns. It is my hope that some form of county oversight is ordered for this department. I have spoken with many of the members, both past and present, and if only half of what they say is true, then corrective actions need to take place. Their service and responsibility to the community is too important to be left to operate this way. Again, it's not my place to offer an opinion unless it's based on investigative findings. I will continue to investigate for the next few months and will report all of my findings when I'm done. I felt that sharing my initial, if not subjective, impression are appropriate because of your position with the county.
I apologize for being on my phone. I'm just trying to read the same letter.
It's pretty well said.
And he did commit, and I know he'll have other important things, that he's moved the cases closer towards the front of the line and set a March 1, 2023 hard deadline to make a determination to continue with the case or close it.
So are the material deficiencies in the audits the same material deficiencies every year, or are they different material deficiencies every year?
I haven't cataloged. There are different types of deficiencies, whether they're significant or not, and then the aggregate total of the various deficiencies then causes the auditor to put the material weakness
Well, sure.
moniker involved.
Well, sure,
And
we had our auditor point out something with the schools a few years ago,
Yeah.
and we asked them to square it up, and they've done it ever since.
Right.
So, I mean, I think, when you get an audit with a black mark on it,
Yeah.
you have to take that to heart and improve it the next year and clear up whatever it is. And it's a big difference to me if there's things that come out in one year, then it should be recognized and corrected, so it's not on the audit again.
Right.
And so if it's the same ones over and over again, to me, that's a real problem.
There are several. The audits are all attached to board docs in the library under Fire Levy Board for the last several years. Many of the companies do have minor deficiencies noted with a caveat stating that they understand it's a small organization, it's hard to have separation of duties. And it's just a note that it's something we need to look at and be mindful of, that it's hard to have that sort of thing. And it's noted as a deficiency. It's not significant, and it's not, doesn't rise to the level of being material weakness.
Go ahead. Parallel to my question regarding our audited financial statements, I'm just curious if any of my colleagues who served on the Fire Levy Board have an impression from that role regarding Company 4's compliance with the supporting documentation, receipts, et cetera, for claiming operating expense reimbursement. And has that been a relatively neat and tight process for Company 4, like in the last year or so, a year or two? I don't know if anyone could comment.
Thank you, Mr. Whitson. So it has been rocky. And Mr. Glenn is sitting here, and he's on the Fire Levy Board with me as well. And I think that it has been hard to line some things up. But I just want to be clear about what I think of as this audit. To move forward, it only benefits to find out what's been going on. And it's not about pointing fingers. It's about regaining trust to move forward. And in the fire levy meetings, people are human beings. People make mistakes. This should not be punitive. This should be restorative. And that's at least the way that I view it. So whether it's through the Fire Levy Board and saying, well, hey, what are these? Where are these receipts, and how come this isn't lining up, or what is this exactly for? It's more about, we've recognized that this hasn't been working, and in order to get it to a place where it does work, we've got to start on firm ground. And we have the state police saying you really should do an audit. To me, that's just very clear. It's just, we got to do it.
Madam Chairperson, I know it's not out of order. Can I correct the record?
Correct the record?
Yes. Paige Glenny, Fire Levy Board, Jackson District. I went and reviewed their last submittal. They were a clean audit. They've switched to a new accountant. They are much better than they were. So my question is, what is the time frame of what the state police investigator is talking about? If it is a year or two ago, that's one thing, all right? If it's something that has happened just recently, that's something else. But the Fire Levy Board hasn't seen anything significantly bad since Debbie and Dave Jarrell went through it. They've cleaned it up, and since then, they've hired another accountant, and this latest accountant has done a very good job. There was not a single removed item from their budget.
So I'm assuming that the audit's about the material deficiencies?
Yes.
So not about, I'm sorry if I misspoke and meant it was about a fire levy thing. This is not about that. I was only talking about the material deficiencies in the 4 years of, was it 4 years of audit?
But even that is dated.
Yeah. No, that's true. But it doesn't hurt. And it's,
No, I'm not disagreeing with you.
and so I did not mean to imply that this last fire levy meeting where we approved your receipts was the issue. I'm only referring to what's in front of us, which is this.
We should have had you on the board when we had the credit card fiasco. We still never did an audit of what was purchased and where it went.
Amen.
So,
I just want to say that Mr. Goff just handed me something, and it basically said these are public funds that we're talking about. The Virginia State Police is asking for a forensic audit. It would be gross negligence, gross underlined, not to proceed with the audit as requested by the Virginia State Police. I agree that this will help clean the slate and really allow, I keep saying the Phoenix moment for Company 4 to occur, but you really need to have the clean slate.
Do you need that in the form of a motion?
I would make that in form of a motion.
I mean, if that's what you want, I can do it.
I,
Or if you'd rather.
I'm fine. I believe we do need, the board should request.
Well, if that's your motion, I'll second it.
Okay.
What is the
Forensic audit, as recommended by the state police.
Have y'all ever known a forensic auditor? Yeah, I mean, I did. I had one that, in the congregation that I administered in Georgia. And I just want to say, people need to understand that forensic auditors look for different things than what you would think people look for. And the forensic auditor that I knew, and I'm not debating about whether this is a good thing to do, I just want to frame the audit that we're undertaking. If you're really a criminal mastermind trying to do something nefarious, the biggest tip to the person auditing you is that everything will always line up. If everything lines up perfectly all the time, then it's somebody's doing a very elaborate scheme to cover their tracks. If there are human beings running an organization, and there are, as said in the Virginia State Police report, sometimes we're human, we don't always do everything exactly right. Does that mean that there's criminal intent and that something was really done wrong? No, it means that something wasn't done exactly right, and it should be improved and done better going forward, and we need to learn. But I just wanted to say, I think it's important to frame this discussion in terms of recognizing that things were in the past, that if we are doing this, it is to put some things to bed and set Company 4 up to succeed going forward.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
I need to understand how you pay for it.
I don't know specifically what the action we're taking is. Are we moving to go hire outside auditors on a specific time schedule? I mean, I think we need to come in with some specificity here, get the show on the road.
I guess it could be to request that the county office hire a forensic auditor within you said they're tied up.
Tomorrow at lunch.
Yeah.
Well, I'm not saying Robinson Farmer Cox is they're not the only company that can do it. They are familiar with the books. The company is because they do the annual regular audit. The individual I spoke with this morning is out of the Richmond office, and these audits are done out of the Charlottesville audits. Our regular audits are out of the Charlottesville office. He's out of the Richmond office. He's not available till the end of February. I also need to understand how the board intends to pay for the audit and if there are dollar limits on that. So what might be possible is for staff to take the direction of bringing to you a clear proposal from one or more auditors for a decision to be made at your next meeting. And we can also figure out the financial side of from which buckets of money are available to you to do that. And if a supplemental appropriation is needed based on our review, we can bring that to you as well. So you could consider that from fund balance or wherever.
Is that something that could be, do we have a mid-month meeting this month?
You have one in when everyone's called.
Yeah, we do have to.
I think the sooner the better. I mean,
Is that something you could?
Special meeting would be fine for me.
I guess if you find any information and can set up something, then we could have a special meeting.
Yep.
Okay.
All right, so do we need to revise?
I think that would be good.
Okay.
We have a motion on the table right now, so you have to
Right.
do something with it.
All right, so it was my motion. I'm going to withdraw that motion and ask or make the motion that the county office researches potential auditors for a forensic audit and reports back to the supervisors with the, I guess, the
Scope and fee proposal?
Yep. At our next meeting, which could be a special meeting. Tempus
I'll
fugit.
second that. I guess my first second is mute if the first motion was
Thank you.
withdrawn.
Okay.
Is that good? We have a motion and a second. Discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Anything else we need to, let's see, Public Safety Committee. That was really the recommendation. The only other part was the funding. I do believe in conversations that I've had with you and others, the building, to cut off 100% funding is probably not necessarily a wise move.
I did express that during Public Safety Committee. While I did vote for the motion, I did so expressing my concern that cutting off money has some significant consequences that need to be really considered. And the goal is to have a company there that is functioning, and cutting off money to heat and buildings and things like that, I don't think is productive.
Well, listen, we could have a year, or we could have a day coming that we don't know about. And it's a shame that EMS isn't running, but let's face it, there was one spring where we had brush fires where people were being called out by saying, send whatever you've got. If anybody's got anything, please send it. Because everybody was out in the field that day. And it may not seem like to some people that fire only in Flint Hill is a lot, but if you have a day like that, it's going to mean a lot to you to see that tanker.
Mm-hmm. So, as a Public Safety Committee member, I have no heartburn with the board not acting on that particular part of the recommendation today.
I do believe we've got more information coming. At the February meeting, we'll be able to take up with a little bit more knowledge, hopefully. And so there's not really a rush, as far as I'm concerned, to take steps to cut the funding. Any other discussion?
I do think I would echo the sentiment of folks in the audience that we need to do something, and we need to set this company up to succeed, get fully restored to EMS. I don't know what that will look like. We have to work together. There will need to be leadership from everybody. Everybody needs to come to the table. And if we're able to do that, then everybody succeeds. I think everyone knows maybe not everyone knows, but one of the first things I went to in this county was the parade in Flint Hill, when that used to be the big event every summer, was the big parade and the carnival in Flint Hill. And a strong Company 4 benefits everyone in Rappahannock County. So you all met with us on an ongoing basis in 2020 when you were on dual dispatch to get put back in good standing with all members of the Public Safety Committee, and you all came to the table on that every month like we asked you to. So I know that you can do it if we can set up a plan, and I appreciate that you all are here tonight.
And the one thing I think the citizens should probably hear, especially in the Wakefield district with regards to fire, I did have a conversation with dispatch, and it's not like if you have a certain particular, like a house fire, that they're only going to dispatch one company. That just doesn't happen. So there's not that panic that if Company 4 didn't have somebody to bring out a piece of equipment, the other the other companies that were dispatched will still be dispatched. So I don't want there to be a panic that nobody's going to come. It's just may take a few more minutes, and that's the way it is right now. But the goal is we are having a very serious conversation, as you can see, and the idea is to move forward in the best way for all the citizens, including the volunteers. Okay.
Absolutely.
All right.
Thank you. Thank you for coming tonight.
Thank you. Move into the building committee update.
If I could just have a 2-minute recess.
2.
So I could get some
timing.
AV going.
Okay. Why don't we take a 5-minute recess?
Well, you can have as many. All right.
Thank you very much. We are now going into the building committee update with the joint with the building committee. So we need to.
You do have, okay.
We have to convene the building committee. We have a quorum of the building committee here, Madam Chair.
Yep. Excellent.
All right. Who's leading the conversation?
I'm not on the building committee, so.
Who's leading the building
Aren't you on
committee
all the
conversation?
No. Isn't that your job?
Where's the committee?
I'm a staff liaison.
Committee of committees. If I could put it in the capable hands of Mr. Glenn, he did the work up here.
I'm the PowerPoint master.
I've lost Wi-Fi
And
again,
so I have, for the Zoom folks, I'm displaying what Miss Jewel is displaying on the TV here.
Oh, okay, all right.
And we both will take our cues from you.
So when to do the next slide?
We'll try.
There's
Next
not
slide.
as many people here as there were last time for the building committee discussion.
Maybe that's a good thing.
Is that good or bad?
I think that's because they've been coming to our meetings and they're all now happy with our work.
Happier.
Or they forgot that we were here tonight. Maybe.
All right, one of the lessons we learned from last time we went to the public was to recap what we've done. So everyone's on the same sheet of music or caught up to the same page, no pun intended. We've determined the material condition, we've identified the space needs, we obtained the courthouse requirements from the judiciary, we've interviewed all the county office holders to confirm the space needs, we've developed rough order of magnitude estimates, very, very rough order level, plus or minus 100%. Investigated adding on to the existing courthouse, that was one of our earlier studies that we did. Vetted an initial courthouse concept with the public, which everyone kind of remembers. Developed an additional courthouse design that you'll see today. And we are actively working on the acquisition strategy for the building exterior restoration, all right? To refresh what we've gotten from the board so far, you all said take the long-term approach to have a campus concept and co-location of the county administration, eliminate and minimize rental space, and begin with the building envelope restoration on the jail because of the chimney issue of safety. And then in May, we went through the option of adding on to the back of this building. It became very obvious to everyone that that was not a viable option. And then June, we developed additional concepts for the courthouse. Next slide. Thank you. First of all, when I start this, when I do the courthouse design options, I want to clearly state these are concepts. These are not detailed designs. They're not ready to go to a builder. They're just concepts. So don't get hung up that, at least I think we got the color of the roof darker this time. But, but anyway, and they're 3D models, so it doesn't look like real life. Lines are sharper. If you're not used to dealing with 3D models, it looks a lot starker than what it will in real life. So anyway, we were going to present 2 options for having the combined court functions, clerk, and Commonwealth attorney all in one building. That's option 2, which I'll go through these in more detail, which is an option we pullback that we had looked at earlier, and option 6, which is the one that we presented last time, but this time it's got a new set of clothes, so it looks a lot different, all right? Both of these allow all remaining space needs to be met with existing buildings. And there's a possible relocation of the old administration building, which I'll talk about later. Then we also, because people were interested in why can't we have a bunch of little buildings around, all right, we looked at a court function only building. We did 2 options for that. They're not small, but I want to point out that we did not find the additional 10,000 square feet of building that we're going to need to make up all the other space. And when we look at the site plans, you'll see why that's going to be kind of hard. So we kind of got to this point, which is not nearly the same level of detail, and said, if we go any farther and spend more money with the architect, we need some direction to go that direction, because basically we still feel that's not a good option. But anyway, it very significantly complicates the space reallocation with the existing building renovation, and of course it's got a higher construction cost and a higher life cycle cost. The relocation of the county office building, that comes with the revision of option 6 to make it more presentable from Gay Street, and you'll see that in the things. And then the last thing we want to talk about is authorizing the development of the old church renovation procurement, getting that process started to not only do the exterior but also do the interior, so that can be a swing space for when we start doing modifications. Because unless you want to get rid of it, which I think you've already decided to keep it, all right, that we might as well fix it and use it since it's not being operated. Next slide. This is the Site 2 site plan. What you can see, it's in that same location. It's facing down the new road that goes over to Warren Avenue. We used the same ADA parking behind the old church and somewhere. So let's go to the next slide. This is what the perspective looks like from that ADA parking space behind the old church. So you can see it's the Jeffersonian type style, but it's not facing Gay Street. It's facing Warren Avenue. So then the next slide, we provide elevations in all 4 directions. The top left one is what you would see from Warren Avenue. The bottom left is what you would see from Avon Hall. Upper right from Gay Street, and the south one looking from the sheriff's office or from the old jail.
Can I ask a quick question? Is that
Sure.
with combined Commonwealth's attorney?
Yes.
Clerk?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes,
So
all
the
of
top right, in the foreground, you're seeing the ADA accessible route from the ADA parking lot behind the old church, heading up to in front of all of the existing buildings.
Right.
And an important feature of this is to reestablish that accessible route so that it does not need to go, accessible route is not accessed from the rear of the buildings, which it's not a great plan. It's hard to know you need to go there. Plus that can then change over to more secure parking.
Right. And then the backside of this, the south perspective, what you're seeing there is, you keep in mind in both these, option 2 and option 6, it takes that whole parking area, it becomes a secure area. So it's no longer public parking back there. So you've got the judge can park back there, the sheriff, so it's basically a non-public parking space.
Prisoner transfer for court.
Huh?
The prisoner transfer for court.
Right, that garage door is the
Sally
port for the prisoners. Next slide is option 6. This is the same basic layout as the one we presented before, but it's got a new face. So next slide. This is the perspective. So the access is still on the side, but looking from Gay Street, it's looking like the old courthouse, all right? Again, this is the perspective from the ADA parking area. All right, next slide. These are the 4 elevations. You'll notice in the view from Gay Street, so you can see that courthouse similar thing, the old admin building is gone. So we can eliminate it, or there's options on where we can move it, and we could move that in both options, the previous option or this option, either one. All right? The view from Warren Avenue, and again, the white portion on the right is the entrance. So that big one that you see from Gay Street is not the entrance. The white one looking on the upper right, that's where the entrance is. You see from the view from Avon Hall, and he was there at our last meeting, and he preferred this option, for whatever that counts. And the view from the secure parking in the back, the south.
I wish that the view from Gay Street was larger in this slide. There's not a way to zoom in on that, is there, on that?
Sure.
Well, you can, but see, the point here that we're trying to do with 3D modeling is put it as if you're walking down Gay Street. So that's the size that's the perspective you're going to see.
Can you just zoom in on the PDF, Bonnie? Oh, you're on full screen, but you probably hit like escape or something.
I'm sorry.
But that really is just a facade to look like it. It's not.
Need a mouse.
Imagine what it would look like if I was doing it.
You're on a later slide. You got to.
Yeah, it won't let you do it if you do full screen, probably.
Yeah.
A little bit. I think that's much better.
It's still in perspective, though, it's still scaled.
This presentation is attached to board docs for those at home or here. You can go back to board docs. You can pull it up, look at it, squint sideways.
So, and this option still preserves that south-facing roof for the solar, and all the other benefits that were in that arrangement. But again, it's a concept. So when we get to the next phase and hire the next architect to work on it, whoever that might be, then we go through a set of refinements of this and a bunch of little details. But this would be like the guidance document going forward.
What is the admin building?
Former county administration building.
The dollhouse.
Thank you.
All right.
You might want to, I guess, sooner than later, maybe talk about where we might put that.
Right. So if you go back a couple slides to the site plan for option 6. 1, 2, there. You can see upper left-hand corner, the one proposed location is out there in front of the jail.
Yeah.
All right? Over here. The previous town mayor was there. I halfway jokingly offered that he could have the building if he wanted to put a bathroom somewhere. But he didn't want it, he wanted us to pay for the bathroom. Anyway.
It's a small building. It's very challenging to find a use for such a small building.
Yes, it's.
I would just offer a friendly comment. The town may remain interested in that building.
Okay.
De minimis arrangement.
Okay.
There have been communications with the previous 2 mayors about could be a town hall, could be a lot of things.
Right.
How old is that building?
Right, not right.
How old is it, the building?
I don't know the
Old.
age. Personally, as an engineer, I don't want to be responsible for trying to pick it up and move it.
Yeah, that's what I was wondering.
All right.
Is it on a stone foundation?
Yes.
A multi- It would probably be easier to bulldoze it and build something that looks like it. But I don't know how much historic value.
I have a file on it that Peter would pull together.
So, all right, option 6. No, option 8, you're right, you're right. This is site plan. Now this is one of the designs for just the court functions. This does not relocate the Commonwealth Attorney or the clerk's office as well. They would stay in their existing buildings, which means we need to find another 10,000 square foot building. So imagine something about, if you want to stick with the campus concept, something this big, and you want to avoid the oak tree, are you putting it down here? Avon Hall's not going to like that. You're going to put it over here. It doesn't fit there. So this option for keeping the campus concept gets very, very difficult.
Or we could have a referendum to move the new courthouse to Amesville. We have a lot of land in Amesville.
That's getting about as common as doubling your pay.
I'm just putting that out there so that nobody forgets it. It should be an option.
Okay. That option had quite a bit of, call it empty basement space. So we did another option, option 9, which is slightly smaller building with a little bit less basement, but basically the same problems. All right. We did not go through the detailed layout. I mean, it's a very rough block diagram of laying out the spaces. But again, where you get this located around with the extra space, or you continue to rent, or whatever other option you want to proceed.
And you can see the common theme of all these is trying to resolve the ADA access to the current buildings through the construction of a new lot behind the church building.
Right.
And then new walks up in front of the buildings. And part of the proposed recommendations from the earlier space needs was to get the concrete walks, if you can, away from the facade of the historical
From the restoration.
Every study we've ever done since I've been on the board is get rid of the sidewalks around.
And so that's why in these, they're shown well in front of the buildings so that you don't have that splashback onto the historical brick and mortar.
Yeah, most of the damage to the brick is coming from water running over the gutter, hitting that concrete sidewalk and splashing up on the brick. That's where most of the problem is coming from.
I did want to mention too, one of the other issues with these options 8 and 9 and having 2 separate buildings is one of the things we heard on the most recent round of feedback on some concepts is the preservation of green space on the campus as we have it now. And if we were to contemplate, trying to fit another building up there next to the sheriff's office, which was with setbacks, I don't think we even have enough room there. But that would erode the green space that we have on the campus even further, and I think that would be a real shame.
To add to that, you put a building in this area, you're going to complicate how you protect this secure parking.
Right.
All right, which is one of the more important things the judge concerns about. All right, and getting to the Sally Port, so the person in the trial is not getting the perp walk pictures. Yeah, you're famous for it. All right, next slide. This is, we talked about it a little bit, the old dollhouse or the old admin building. Obviously, for the one that's facing this way, option 6, it would be ideal to move that or get rid of that. So really what we're looking for here is your insights into that. Do you want to keep it? Do you want to move it? Do you want to try and give it away? Or what are your thoughts on that? And I'm not for a definitive answer. Just give us, which vector we should be going on. All right? So the next slide and the last slide is what we're looking for is, do you want us to continue to proceed with the 2 big buildings, and if you have one selection over the other, or do you want us to continue and refine those last 2 and try and solve all those problems? Again, as I just said, what do you want us to do with that? And we would like to get permission to proceed with the development of the procurement documents, which would obviously have to come back to you with the financial numbers and everything else for approval. But let us get started on putting that procurement package together.
For the
church. For the church, for the old church.
That's the presumption, I think, has already been discussed here, is that Mr. Waters has said it's a sound structure. Has value. It's not a great size, but can be useful for some county function, and definitely useful for county function as you're renovating other spaces, Treasurer's Office, Commissioner of Revenue, et cetera. And so you could potentially move some into that. Unfortunately, today it has one door, no plumbing, and not the best electrical. So we're talking about finding another egress point, fixing ADA access, fixing the doors, and modernizing the building to accommodate that, which won't be cheap. But if the decision is that we're keeping the building, then you got to make that decision at some point.
And so you understand the leading contender for getting that space in the long run right now would be the extension office. That's the one that fits in there the easiest.
And I think it probably could be co-located with a meeting space, just like they have now.
Exactly.
That might
Should
be
we
the
give you a-
final inhabitant, but while we're working through
Oh,
all
it's
of the
gonna be-
historical buildings and everything that they need, and people are being relocated while that work is being done, so it's not disruptive to their public functions. I believe that the church could be a vital swing space, and it's a sensible swing space because it's in the same general location as all those offices that people are expecting to visit. So if there's a sign on the door or on the sidewalk that says, "We're closed, come visit us in the white church," it's a very easy transition.
And it allows us to start those renovations of the Treasurer's Office and the Commissioner of Revenue's office, allows us to start them earlier. We don't have to wait for the new courthouse.
Right.
So it accelerates the plan.
Taking on water.
Because if the other alternative is that you build the new courthouse, the clerk of circuit court moves to the new courthouse, and then the clerk's building is available for flex space, but that's well
down the road. So we get renovation started sooner in those other two buildings.
One question about the Methodist Church. If we renovate it now, have you already factored it into ultimate space needs calculation once it's renovated? In other words, would it have a sort of a decided role long term aside from near term flex space use?
Yes, sir, that's what I was saying before. I'm sorry, I wasn't on the mic. Most likely, if you look at the space dominoes, right now it looks like the extension office would go in there long term.
Oh, okay.
And as Gary mentioned, that would give us a second conference room. Realizing that this courthouse becomes your main conference room.
And probably board chamber.
Right.
Board, planning commission, et cetera, but
Right.
that's still down the road. We've got to get over there for that.
Oh, that's
way down the road. Right.
Many dominoes.
This would be, I don't think, I mean, even though it sounds like quite a bit of work, and it's a little more expensive than it was probably the last time we talked about doing it, it's not that, it won't take that long to do it.
Well, the other thing is about the church. We have to work out the exact domino, who goes what when, and how you do it, but theoretically, for example, you could have a situation where the treasurer's office goes in there for a while until their building's done. Then the commissioner of revenue goes off. And then it becomes the board of supervisors meeting room while this building is being redone. All right, because you're not going to be able to meet in the new courthouse. So that's what I'm saying, the bigger, option 2 and 6, by putting all that stuff in there, simplifies that, and then doing the church now simplifies the transition plan.
Yeah, I can't give you the exact year, but I remember attending a board meeting in the old theater while this was being renovated
On the other side of the street?
Right, in 80, whatever it was. They had, I went to 2 or 3 meetings over there. I don't know how long this was closed. But things are a little more difficult to hold court over there.
Yeah.
So, but the board did meet over there years ago. And I was a private citizen. Nibble was on the board, and he does this.
So we're talking 2-3 decades ago, right?
1894, 95.
So someone's gotta make a joke back at you every now
1889, I
and then.
believe it was.
Well, I think it's a great idea to fix up the Methodist church and use it as swing space. I love that building, and I think it's a huge asset. I think it would look so good, and it would get the ball moving on being able to do the rest of the buildings. My question to you guys is, have you guys thought about what it looks like? It has no, I didn't know that it didn't have any plumbing, and I can't remember if it's one giant room, if there's a back room, is there a?
Well, there's a
is there anything
stage.
underneath
There's
it?
a
There's a
There's
basement.
a basement.
Basement in
That's
the,
where, yeah.
in the rear,
Uh-huh.
which maybe is an addition. I don't know.
Yeah, I
But-
think it's a half or
Yeah.
less than, well, maybe it's less than a half.
Is there a
Less-
balcony in there?
Yeah, there was,
Yeah.
I don't
The
know whether it's
balcony
still
is now the
safe.
AV area.
Whether we keep I think the regulations are that the outside's gotta look the same.
Those are restrictive covenants.
But we can make the inside whatever, so if we wanna take out that balcony and just have a big open space, you know, and then the ADA access, I should have pointed out on the other ones, is out the back.
Okay.
All right, or the second access is out the back. The ADA, you would have to come around and go in the front,
That would take some work.
because there's no elevator.
And it's split doors like downstairs.
Yeah.
There'd be a lot of effort to figure it out.
What's the square footage on the church?
Off the top.
I forget, it seems like a figure of like 1,200 square feet or something that could be usable.
So you're thinking how many people could move into their,
Not many. An office.
An office at a time.
Yeah, you can do that,
you'd have to put in bathrooms, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Dude, when did we buy that building? And how much did we buy it for?
It was swapped for the
Yeah, that was a
town
land
hall,
swap.
Oh,
when-
which is the library.
The property was donated by the,
Methodist charge,
I'm sorry.
Methodist.
Yeah, but when there was, the county owned the current town hall.
Yeah.
The town owned this building, and the family out there on the highway donated the land for the.
Swarovski,
I think so, Swarovski.
something like that.
Thank you. They donated the land that the library sitting on, so in the middle of all that, I think the board did what they did, and it came up with these, the town wanted a covenant on this building, and the county says, okay, if you're gonna be like that, we'll put a covenant on what you're getting. And, you know, it was a real friendly atmosphere back in those days. That has only gotten better with time.
Ron, we're gonna undo it.
It's about, Madam Chair, it's just under 3,000 square feet.
Oh, thank you.
Not counting the balcony, I'm sure.
Not counting,
Or the basement.
not counting the basement.
It's bigger than I remembered, then, thank you.
Huh, wow, that's pretty good.
I talked to a builder some years back, maybe 15 years ago, and they were talking, just to convert it to commercial space would be between $200 and $400 a square foot. But that didn't include any exterior work, and those prices are probably way up.
Well, that's, the number we were using in the previous ROM estimates was $400 a square foot for renovation.
That's probably gonna be bottom.
So, yeah, with materials and everything else, but that's why those are ROMs. So, that's why we want to go to a procurement and go to and get an actual real proposal that you can budget.
But just to refresh everyone's memory, we pay $5,000 a month in rent.
Right. So since we've been going
For
month
these
to month,
Yep.
we've spent $300,000 across the street since we went month to month without a long-term lease.
So do you guys need a motion from us? Do you, I'm in full support of.
Well, we need a couple of
That
motions
building.
and votes to make it less complicated. We need a motion on turning the building committee loose to start the procurement process on the old church building, to renovate it.
What exactly would that process look like? You guys would get designs, come back, how do you envision the entire process?
Well, we're working with Wiley Wilson. I don't want to get ahead of anybody else, but we're working with Wiley Wilson on the new courthouse complex. We still have, I think, 2 other architectural firms that we may be able to pull in on that, so that we don't have all the eggs in one basket and a long lead time just on getting the work done.
But I think it's a simpler process. It's not
Yeah.
complicated. It's really just give us a rough layout of the bathroom in the back, the stairs, open the space up, and so we're flexible inside of it.
Right.
And then we can give that to a contractor for the interior, We already have an estimate that Dale put together for the exterior. Whether that's the same contractor or not, that's something we can look at to do. Because it's all, in that case, it's all woodwork.
Office space type situations inside would be probably the fastest, easiest thing to do.
Yeah, I think you would want as flexible space as possible, and then eventually you might do some sort of build out when you have a permanent, long-term tenant.
We want it sort of a blank slate
Yes.
for the time
Right.
being, so that it can meet any number of needs as we go through this process.
That's a good idea.
So you wanted a motion, it looks like there's one specific to proceed with development of Old Church renovation procurement.
Correct.
Yeah, I'll make that motion, for the building committee to proceed with development of Old Church renovation.
And I just want to be clear that it is going to look like it does now.
Right.
We're not going to change that.
Within reason.
Sure. We are just, and we're not tearing it down.
We might do it at night.
No murals, it will still be one.
We just want to
Yeah.
make it a nice, usable space and fix the things that are wrong with the building.
And as Christine has pointed out, because it's right there on the main drag coming down to the new courthouse, you don't want some shabby old building sitting there.
Right. It would be a terrible entrance to anything that
Yeah.
we might do.
All right, Van made the motion, do I have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second, discussion? Mr. Whitsingham, you here? I'm just making sure.
Yeah, I'm with you.
Okay. Hearing no discussion, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. No opposed.
Now, the second motion we need, I guess, we need to know which direction you want to go on the new building. Whether you want a tall building, a small building, and we start scratching for an additional 10,000 square foot. If we want the large building, which we'd already agreed upon once as a board, so that decision was really already made. If we stick with it, do we want the, is it
Option 2 or option 6?
option 2 or option 6?
So is the building committee on the right track with option 6, which I think is the building committee's preferred option at this point, if I could put words in your mouth? Are they on the right track? As Randy Vaughn sent us a new suit on the same body or something.
Right. And if it, whatever it means, the people that were at the last building committee seem to favor option 6 over option 2.
And I would say that one of the citizens who spoke vociferously at the public comment period was in attendance and seemed rather satisfied with this.
Yeah, exactly. There was 2 or 3 of them that objected to what we presented before, but liked the new suit on the.
And I'm saying, I'm not 100% sold on the facade. I mean, I think it could be, I think there's still room for improvement on the facade, but that, compared to the first rendering versus this rendering, I think it's night and day. And, you know, we'll continue to take feedback from the public as well as this board and the design details.
But those are design iterations we go through with the next phase of design too. So
Yeah,
we bring that back periodically for review.
And the first plan we saw tonight, you can probably tell everything's much more compressed in the way the space is presented. And, you know, the sort of spread of second large design does help break up the mass of the building, is the general feeling we walked away with from the last building committee meeting.
Well, I definitely prefer an option that incorporates court functions. I think that's the smart thing to do. And I don't think that, I think it's smart to try and be efficient with space, but I don't think we should try to make it smaller. I think we'd just be running into problems 20, 30 years down the line.
You mean to combine all 3 of the functions in there?
Yeah, exactly. To have all the court functions in there instead of having just it be a courthouse. I think that seems to be totally the sensible option. And I agree, I do think that general concept works the best. But to Ms. Smith's point, I mean, it's the facade and all of as Mr. Glennie said, the clothes can change. But it seems to be the most sensible option. I'm wondering, Mr. Fraser made a comment, I don't know, many building committees ago, many meetings ago about underground space. And I think whatever is effective underground is great if it creates issues.
It has its own issues.
Right, exactly.
But there's probably less exterior maintenance to worry about, but you've got, if we don't stay on top of the heating and the air system, you're gonna have mold issues.
Yeah.
But it's just a matter of, I mean, they're building a lot of buildings today with green roofs, so they're underground, so to speak. They got 2 feet of soil and weeds growing on top of them.
And most of the office space is not underground. Most of the Gay Street side of the building, the lower level is mostly mechanical space.
Right.
Possible. Back to your first comment.
Yeah, exactly. At the current arrangement of the deck chairs.
So when you get to a larger building like this, there are generally different HVAC options available to you as compared to a small building where you can more easily provide reheat, which helps keep that humidity in check. So I think as long as we go in designing the right way, we'll be all right. And it'll be very energy efficient, that section.
I just had a question. If we were to put forward a motion for the building committee to, I guess, go further with design guidance from our outside advisors, what's the cost each time we take that step? I mean, ballpark.
And so that's where we're about at the point where the next step would be you need to decide the building you want to start designing rather than a concept, and there are several steps of a typical design process, and we would seek proposals from one or more architects, which could be the same one, that would bring us all the way through those construction documents. And you would get a look and see what that is going to be now before you proceed, I guess.
But
okay, so you're saying no cost. Basically, now we'd be seeking proposals, and I think this is going to be the point.
There might be one step between now and then of a more detailed planning.
Okay, and I just want to make sure that there's still opportunity for public input and feedback. I mean, this is a big deal, and while we need to make progress, and I'm all for that, I just want to make sure we're also not locking ourselves into something, one, that's costly from a planning perspective if we were to change directions again, and two, that there's no going back once we say, please proceed in getting design proposals.
Well, and this is a big decision. If you all want to take a minute tonight, after tonight, and take it into consideration and have an answer for us next month, that's okay too, because it is a big decision. And to me, this process showed me that I want to do one building, which is a big step. Between the two concepts of a more compressed building or a more sprawling building, I don't personally have a preference. I think probably the more spread out building, it seems to be more palatable to most people. Maybe a more elegant design, a better face from Gay Street, more green space in front of the building. Those seem to all be selling points for folks. But I'm not married to one idea or the other, and you may want to think about it, and it's a big decision. You may have more questions for us, and you may want to hear from people in your districts and come back with an answer for us next month, and that's okay too. That's why we keep coming back every quarter, because we know that these are big decisions and we want buy-in from the full board and the public in the decisions that we make.
And obviously, when we go to that next step of design, you will see it again, the public will see it again, you'll see the procurement documents and so forth and so on. So those will be presented. This is not the last time you get to see it,
Correct.
by any stretch of the
By the
imagination.
time we get to procurement documents, we're kind of locked into the look of it.
Yeah.
Well, until the procurement documents are released, all right?
I've experienced spending $1 million on the design of the building, and the board changed majorities, and they decided not to do the project.
It happens.
It's really what happened.
Are these site plans printed out and at your office anywhere?
Oh, they can be.
I just, looking at them on a computer and not,
Sure.
I'd like to be able to see them closer.
Yeah, we have, these are all pulled from other documents. They're not as, we can get you clear.
Well, yeah, because to put it in PowerPoint, they have to take a picture of them, and so they got fuzzy.
Yeah, because when I'm trying to zoom in, it's not.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Is there any thoughts on the old admin building? Must it stay in its current location? Is there value in continuing the discussion of if you want to have these kind of big lawn in front of a courthouse, as you see in option 6? It doesn't really work with that building there. Is it okay to move it? Any thoughts there now, or is that something you want to reserve for another time?
Option 2, having that big lawn would actually be a detriment because that side of the building is kind of ugly.
Maybe.
What's the feedback been on when you have meetings? Is there a passion for that building? There seems to be one for the church.
It's definitely a historical building. It's been used for a long time, and like I said, I've got a file on it. I think it goes back, was attorney's office to start.
Commonwealth Attorney's Office.
But I think there was a building there before that building, when I looked through the records.
Well, you know, Avon Hall used to sit up there and they just pushed that back down there, rolled it on logs back down there. And that's why there looks like there's an empty lot there now where that stone thing is. But may I just say something about this, please, because it's eating me up. But the Methodist, well, the Methodist church had water in that basement all the time. Because when they moved to Avon Hall, they put the furniture they didn't want in their new house. Mr. Baggerly, my grandfather worked for him, and they put the furniture in the basement of the Methodist church. Well, then they realized that the basement was full of water, so they asked my father to get all the furniture out. I have some of it now, I had it restored. So you can't count on that basement. And what I would really like to see, and I've been in interior design and designed an outside building for many, many years in Fairfax County. But what I would really like to see is the church and the Commonwealth Attorney's Office, which is what it was. Those two can still be rolled down the hill and moved elsewhere. You don't have to pick it up. And this building has problems, even though it's been added onto. It really looks like two little slave cabins sitting there. That's what people call them, the slave cabins. So I would like to see these two buildings moved, these two little buildings removed. You've got to spend a lot of money on fixing them up. And I would like to see this brought somewhat forward. It's too far back. Then that gives you parking without people having to come up that hill. I don't understand why there's so many roof lines here, because that makes the building much more expensive. And this cell that's here, I don't understand that either, because what does it really add? I just think that this is a very ugly building. So if you could just pull that forward some, and you'd still have a nice lawn, but these two go, and these two move. I think would be much better. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Carol.
Immediate concern I have is, what do we do with the occupants of the treasurer's office if we tear those off? That couldn't possibly be done anytime soon.
Well, Ron, you can rent temporary buildings.
Well, I've been saying that for
Fairly
years.
big ones that they bring in and set up, and you rent those.
Well,
Yeah.
no, but she brings up another issue. Do you want to preserve those two historic buildings? That's been an assumption that we've made, that you want to preserve those buildings.
I think we heard from a large number of citizens that said we want to keep those buildings,
Yeah.
didn't we? Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, it was loud.
Plus, you just can't tear down a historical landmark. That's,
You
just
can,
can't
but
do
the
that.
fines later might be a problem.
Yes.
But another point for Carolyn is the reason the architect made all those ins and outs was to break up the size, make the building look not as looming. Go to the elevations of option 2.
It just leads to a higher cost.
Oh, yes, it does. No, the elevations.
Right there.
See, what he's trying to avoid is these big flat sides that make the building look bigger. All right, I'm not saying it's right or wrong, that's what was the idea, okay? That's what his goal is. And it's also one person's opinion. What's his name from Avon Hall didn't like the view of this one, all right? It looks like a big flat building from his perspective. So there's thousands of trade-offs here, and, you know,
Yeah, the view from Gay Street's a little tough on this one.
yes, it is. Particularly if you take the admin building out. I mean, but again, we can do something to the facade to make it look better.
Well, and I did ask, I think that was the question I asked, is if there's a way to work on this view from Gay Street and make it more, sort of mirror the front of the courthouse. So we would have that sort of look from Gay Street. And I think the answer was that it would be challenging because it's bathrooms on that side right now. And so to have big windows is not really gonna work in the
Well, there's a
bathroom.
portion of the community that might like that.
Well.
All right, man.
So it's kind of tough, and there may be a way to work around that if this is what folks want. And there may be other ways to work on the smaller footprint and make it more palatable to everyone, but.
But so the guidance we're asking for, do you want us to continue to iterate these two? Or do we kind of take one of them and start down to the next phase of design? And where I thought Mr. Whitson's question was going forward, if we iterate it again, what's the cost? So what was the cost for this last iteration between?
So long ago,
No, from when we had the public hearing that everyone.
that was still included within the.
Yeah, but
scope.
how many hours did he burn roughly?
I haven't got that bill yet.
Yeah.
Whatever was left, like 10%.
So we don't have much left.
No, there's nothing left,
Nothing
basically, on the original scope.
Right.
Okay, so we're at the end of the original scope.
Yeah.
Which we could add scope
Yeah.
theoretically,
Yeah.
if that's what you want to do. Don't.
I like the idea that you said, let's take a break on this one and give us a chance to actually go see the documents in your office or wherever, to be able to get a closer look at it, talk through it a little bit, instead of trying to force some sort of decision tonight.
I totally agree. What I did last time was I printed them out, I went down, I walked around the courthouse, just felt it out, and I would love to do the same with this. Because to your point, I mean, it is a huge
Big
decision.
decision.
And while I do, and I favor 6, and I think that all the 3 functions in one building is the way to go.
Yep.
it would be helpful for me to visualize.
That's why we keep coming back every
Yeah.
quarter. It's a lot.
Well, we may not have to wait a quarter, right? We
Right.
can come back next month and talk.
But that's why the building committee keeps coming back every 3 or 4 months. We know that these are momentous decisions, and it's important for everybody to be on board. We don't wanna waste that $1 million and then have a public outcry
Yeah.
against what's going on and have to, abandon ship. It would be a big disservice.
Remind the board and the public that on the county website, under the government tab, there's a subheading for building committee, and there's higher resolution documents available there as well.
Thank you for that.
Got it.
But we do have the green light to go ahead with some work on the church tonight, so
Yes.
that's good.
And you wanted guidance about the
Or just thoughts on it.
thoughts on it. It's very, it's hard to say. Is there a basement there?
No. The rear shed addition is modern.
Thank you,
Which you can't really see, that's where the bathroom is now. The front is on a cobblestone foundation. The building's in tough shape, but it has new electrical.
No? Electrical?
Has new electrical.
Oh, new.
So that's good.
My only fear with moving is that we get into it and then all of a sudden be like, wow, this is getting expensive. This is getting very expensive. Oh my gosh, this is even
For
more
something that we
expensive.
really don't have a use for.
I know
That would be
people
my
have
only
said
fear.
something about a community, bathroom facility with the theater being right there. Has that even been considered? Just
We didn't consider that at all because the view at the new courthouse just looks so much better without it.
But it could go across the street to that one lot adjacent to whatever, wherever the town would like to put it.
Tommy.
I just have a Tommy Atkins, Jackson District, a question. We've heard a lot of talk about this, but I haven't heard anything about the cost. And yes, I've not heard anything about the cost. We have not heard a presentation that if you do this plan, it's gonna cost this much. And we've not heard a presentation about if we were to take down these buildings. Yes, we heard some outcry from maybe a lot of liberal people that they want this to stay the same, but what about the cost? There are still a few of us conservative people in this county that are concerned about the cost. I know that most of them don't know what conservative the definition of. I understand that, I get that. But there are still a few conservative people in this county. And that needs to be addressed. And when you put pictures, you put designs, I know the concept, but when you get away from straight lines, it's money. And when you get away from and refurbishing buildings, when you continue to refurbish buildings, it's money. Now, new buildings can be built cheaper. And the county, not just one public hearing, that you get word out to a few people to get out here that's real liberal, and they want all of this historical stuff kept, because it means so much to them, but they probably haven't been in the county 10 or 15 years. So how much does it really mean to them? And what does it really mean to the natives of this county? I want to see a good courthouse built, and I want to see a good municipal building that contains all of the county employees in there. I don't want to see the zoning administrator over down the street here and y'all are paying, or we're paying, taxpayers are paying $500,000 a month. I think I heard Mr. Fraser say something like we've already spent $300,000. That's ridiculous, folks.
Well, that's over a period of several years.
Okay, but that's ridiculous.
Over $1 million since I've been on the board.
We agree, that's why we're doing this.
Right, okay. But I agree with you, we need to take more time. You need to take more time on this, and the public the large majority of the public needs to be brought into this thing, not just a few. Not just a few of these that come and mouth off. But we need to get to the people in this county. And that we got a lot of people in this county that have come to the point that they have decided it doesn't do any good to come to these meetings because nobody listens to them and you don't do anything about their requests. So we need to do something about that. And I know you've got a hard job, but in this life we all can do better. We can all work more together, and we all can do better. So I'm just asking that we take time, just get this thing right, because we're not going to be able to do it at one time. And let's do it the cost-effective way. Not just, this county does a lot of wealthy people in this county. But as far as the revenue in this county, we don't have all that. As y'all well know, we don't have that abundance of revenue that they had up in Northern Virginia, Loudoun County, Fairfax County, Prince William County. We don't have that luxury here in this county. We got a lot of poor people in this county. We addressed an issue here earlier tonight for helping the seniors. And as I said then, there needs to be more help for those people. So I just ask us to take time, just get it right, but just work together and get everybody's input, not just a few. We need to try to get everybody's input into this. Thank you.
Thanks, Tom.
We did have process in this last year. I'll show them to you later.
And I just want to say, this is always reminds me of the adage, you have to plant trees, you have to plant seed, remembering that you may not get to enjoy the shade of the tree that you're planting today. This is long-term planning. This is very challenging stuff. And as Gary said, sometimes things change. People may not always agree with us. We may have to go back to the drawing board. But we are renting expensive space. We have historic buildings and old buildings that continue to deteriorate that we need to do something about because the longer we put it off, the worse that they will get. We are very fortunate that we are able to use this space as a courthouse for courthouse functions. There are other counties that have received directives from judges to go and build a new courthouse because the current courthouse is not serving their needs. We do not want to get to a point as a county that we are instructed to build a new courthouse, and we have no plan. We want to position ourselves optimally for the future, anticipating our building space needs for public efficiencies and for court functions for the people of Rappahannock County. That's the long-term planning goals. I think I'm summarizing them accurately. I hope I am for the building committee. We do take cost into consideration. I don't think anyone on the building committee can be characterized as an extravagant person. And we are at concept level, which is frustrating because it's hard to assign dollar figures. But we know the needs that need to be met. We are also very diligently paying off our debt as a county, and we are in a position to be, I know you always have these numbers at your disposal, Gary, like 2 years out from being debt-free.
24 and 25.
So we will be in a position to take out bonds to do what we need to do. We have an excellent credit rating as a county. There's no reason to put off to do the planning. We may disagree in the planning, but if we don't start to do the planning, we'll never get anything done. So I know it's a lot of tough questions for people, and I hear a lot about money too, and people have qualms and worries, but I know that we are a modest rural county, and I would not take on anything that I thought was more than what we actually needed, and maybe more importantly, what we can afford. And if you look at all the rental space, how things are spread out, it's just not efficient, it's not effective. It's a waste of money. People get frustrated. And we are working, and, we'll continue to do the work at the direction of the board.
So with that, I can't do any better than my colleague or Tommy, so would y'all like to postpone the decision until next month? Or unless we have a meeting in between, and maybe we'll be ready to add that to the agenda.
I think that makes sense.
Yeah, I do, thank you.
And of course, we're always here for questions, or if you have constituents that have questions, we will answer them to the best of our abilities.
Yeah. So I just want to thank all of you on the building committee for all the work that's gone into this so far, and I owe you time in the documents, and certainly I'm committed to that. And I did receive a phone call or two leading up to this meeting, which is why I asked the question about sort of costs that we might incur if we jump into the next step. So I appreciate a bit of a pause here to give us time to wrestle with this.
Yeah, and the next step that we discussed with the architectural firm was to move into more of a design charrette with all of the stakeholders. We've had the initial interviews with all of the building occupants, except for, well, they're not going to be building occupants. But the next is to really dig into that next detail level and work through iterative process with each one of those department areas. And we can't do that until we really know which direction that this is going. And we can stay in this kind of space for as long as the board needs and community needs to focus energy in the right spot, in the right direction. We don't want to get too far down the line where the course correction is much harder to do. You want to keep changing the lines on the paper today rather than trying to change a wall that's already built later.
Correct, but still, there's gonna be a hard decision at some point.
Yep.
Because not everyone is going to agree.
Anything else on the building?
Ms. Chair Donahue asked me about the restoration of the jail, which was authorized. We have made some progress on the procurement side with the two-step process to pre-qualify contractors and then bid that work out to those pre-qualified contractors. Mr. Waters has developed some documentation that we need to advance to the next step.
Right, and we've talked about the next step is to do an acquisition strategy to show you how all that plays out. Right? And that's what we're working on.
Anything else on building update?
Pretty much it, I believe.
Okay.
Thank you all.
Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much.
Thank you.
Entertain
Thanks a lot.
during the building committee.
So moved.
The ayes have it.
All right, classification and compensation study.
Thank you. Can we just give a 5-minute here or
Sure.
however many minutes?
I don't even know that it's 5 minutes.
We did estimates a year based on square footage.
So regarding the classification and compensation study,
Mr. Lemon.
$6 to $8
Hey.
million.
Hey.
Okay.
What?
Still meeting.
Still meeting.
there is no further update at this meeting from what was reported to you in December. And that is because you'll recall that the next step in the process was for department heads to take another opportunity to re-review and finalize their job descriptions. And then we were going to get those job descriptions back to Baker Tilly so that they could finalize their assessment of those jobs and ensure the correct placement within the pay scale. So department heads are continuing to review those job descriptions, and they've been asked to get that information back to us by January 16th. So that's the current status.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Motion to adjourn?
The second? Second. Motion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.